apparently they don't help you set up a camera. Now, I've had this in there before.
Tes dessins.
That's that. And then there's this.
Why don't I have a picture here?
Because this baby is closing the front.
Ah, there you.
Well, you know what they say.
Hey, hey, that's enough. That's enough.
Yeah, don't confuse us with the obvious.
Hey, that's enough too.
So, if someone else wants to film,
Sure.
you might just want to
Tu
adjust
veux
this so
venir sur moi, toi, hein?
as loose as you want it,
T'as envoyé un-tu des
Tight.
signaux?
Oui, c'est ça.
depending on how you
Ah,
move.
ben,
And
ok.
Là, tu vas être jaloux, là.
One switch here, you put this
Ah,
over
yeah.
here.
Non, c'est pas que j'aime.
Ah, ben t'es là
so
aussi.
once that
Yeah.
button, it's recording.
Correct.
You know, a little bit of rocking. This thing has a stabilizer,
I can
Ah oui?
use,
so it doesn't affect it.
let's say,
Yeah,
Try
I
now.
think
Oh,
that's not as hard as you can.
t'as pas idée.
So,
okay, good, up to seats.
Oui. Moi, j'ai en ce moment des chats, puis ils font tout le temps des
You
vidéos.
wanna-
that's
What's that?
mine.
J'ai
And
cinq vidéos,
Jim's
j'avais
has yours.
7
They're
chats,
both almost identical.
dans les week-ends.
Oh, this is Mike charging, so,
Okay. Well, we'll plug that one into the other one.
okay, this is one I had in the,
Okay.
Yeah, Jim was using mine.
This one looks like it's 2/3 charged, so.
Probably a good idea.
Ouais.
here, in fact, here, why don't you plug into the one in front so it's not behind it?
Non?
And here, I'll put this one in here.
Okay.
Ouais. Et vous avez mangé? Ouais.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Puis les œufs, c'est qu'il y a tous les matins? Il y en a tous les jours déjà? Ouais. Fais ça.
Moi, j'ai un ami qui est installé.
Oh, oui.
Hey, Jim, is there another chair that I can bring down?
Oh, wow.
Oh, these are my 4 chairs. I mean, you know, there was a rocking chair. I mean,
My chair is in the back.
those 2 brown,
There, it's
Okay, if I sit
There's
now?
some benches we could bring
Yeah.
up.
Okay.
It's here, but
those chairs that I have out on the deck, just like that, they can come in here.
Il y a des exposés.
Do we have enough for
No, it's on
everybody?
this side.
I don't know. No, I mean, not everybody's here yet.
Regardez vos exposés. Est-ce que maman les filme?
C'est papa
Non.
qui filme.
C'est papa qui filme. Ah, si vous voulez, vous dites faites un tour aussi avec Guylaine sur Messenger. Je peux pas les regarder. Mais je veux voir.
Oh, yeah.
Je veux voir. C'est
Al,
toi, hein, Jean, qui fait le
Make a
livre,
couple of marks on the board there, up in the left-hand corner. Yeah, it looks really bright there. Let me see if I can see
Non,
it.
mais en plastique.
No, can't see it. Turn that light out.
Turn the light off.
Yeah.
Ah oui?
Another one.
Parce que quand tu le
Another
vois,
one.
j'aimerais bien ça voir ça.
Now I can see it. Boy, this camera has wonderful resolution.
So it's better without the lights.
Better without the lights. I couldn't see anything with that. With the light.
Okay.
Ouais.
J'aimerais ça d'en avoir.
Oh, ok, got the message.
Wow.
Ok. Je sais que je vais emmener si je vais faire une visite chez vous. Hein?
Moi, j'ai un petit ami qui veut faire une visite.
Still working on the logo.
Il va chez...
I want to go in here and edit these, make them Hebrew letters.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you talked about that.
Que à la compétition, je l'ai vu.
Which ones you gonna put in there?
Tu fais du karaté?
As many as I can.
Oh, là, allez-vous
Oh, all of the letters?
Yeah.
Okay.
Vous montrerez ça.
They're kind of upside down, at least the Alep's upside down, but they're there.
There you go.
Actually, an interesting thing like that, if you look at artifacts, they've got the letters spinning all different directions.
That's true.
There was not necessarily a consistent form of
Where you
verticality.
place it.
How about right here?
That's
Yeah,
true.
we'll even break up the spelling of words on different lines, you know, on an old coin, for example.
Oui, hein, vraiment.
Right.
Let's move the chairs down just to...
Well, I even bring that up sometimes on the, when we get to the points
A couple of inches.
that match up to the final 5 Soviet letters. And a lot of people say, well, that's not in paleo. But I've seen them drawn so many other ways, there's no evidence that they weren't in the paleo.
Yeah, you have
you
to
see a mem drawn 3 different ways, how do you know that one of those aren't in the final form?
Sure, you'd almost have to find a very ancient text that has
On va voir ça, on va
Sophie
le
letters and see what they did and whether it's the exact same form elsewhere used. And I'm not
Ouais.
sure. In fact, there's a Leviticus
On va voir
that
ça, moi.
they found
Puis aussi
wrong.
la
I think
culbute,
look
là.
at that. I have a
Fais les culbutes, t'es
book
capable?
that D.N.
Ah, ça, je vais voir ça, je vais écouter
He's
ça.
a professor at UCSD, San Diego. And he analyzed your
Mais
orthography.
comme
That
une
might be
qui
a-
soulève sur
something
la
to
pirouette.
investigate.
Ouais, j'aimerais bien essayer
That would
de
be
faire
interesting.
ça.
I'm jealous.
I mean, they're definitely there for a reason.
When I'm alone up there, he sits in my lap all the time.
Oh!
I want to make my
No, I'm his favorite.
Yes, you are.
We ready then?
I'm jealous. Yes, we're ready. We may miss a few, but they can come in when we,
3, 2, 1.
Good.
All right. Aurora. Well, I'll just introduce myself first and what this PowerPoint and our presentation is about. So I'm Dr. Alfonso Manzo. I started out studying electrical engineering, and I decided not to continue doing that, so I went to seminary, and I got sick, and I had what they call ulcerative colitis, which is ulcers in the colon, and they wanted to remove my colon, and I said, no, that doesn't sound like a good idea, because they couldn't tell me what was the cause. So I went natural medicine, and within a few years I was completely healed. So then I changed careers again, and went into medical studies, especially on natural medicine. And because of my background in electrical engineering, I wanted to study the energy systems of the body, which we call biophysics. And that's basically what I do now. I'm a naturopathic doctor, and I specialize in biophysics. So and eventually I'm developing, what I think I am actually doing is restoring an ancient system. I call it Aleph Tav body. Of how the body is actually controlled by Hebrew letter, which are like telecommunication centers on the body.
Wow.
And so this PowerPoint is a combination of like 3. I used to do one called Electromagnetic Man, which is about EMFs and how they affect the body. One's biophysics and one Aleph Tav. So I've kind of shortened and condensed it because a lot of things are duplicate. So we'll see how this works and if it makes sense. And there's 1,000 places we can go. I'll say this before I start. One thing that's interesting with the creation that only Yah can do is he makes things complicatedly simple. And there's a level where you can never completely figure it out because it's so complicated and so detailed, but at the same time he seems to create everything with these principles that if you just understand the basic principles, you got it. And then there's all the in-between area where we get bogged down and get into the arguments and all these crazy things, but we'll see that. So it's difficult to try to explain things with Aleph Tav body, and sometimes it's Hebrew thought where it's cyclical, so I'll cover things and then I'll cover more things and they seem unrelated, but eventually they all come back together, and then once they all come back together and you see the whole picture, you go, ah, because you have to define one thing and define something else. You can't define that if you define the thing before it, but you can't define that before you define something else, so it's like you have to develop a whole new language of getting to what you want to say. I don't know if you ever had that problem. But we're going to start off with a couple videos. So we're going to start off looking at what is the electromagnetic spectrum. Because there's all these words thrown around like frequencies and radiation and energy, and we really need clear definitions of what are we talking about.
Something surrounds you, bombards you, some of which you can't see, touch, or even feel. Every day, everywhere you go. It is odorless and tasteless, yet you use it and depend on it every hour of every day. Without it, the world you know could not exist. What is it? Electromagnetic radiation. These waves spread across a spectrum from very short gamma rays to X-rays, ultraviolet rays, visible light waves, even longer infrared waves, microwaves, to radio waves, which can measure longer than a mountain range. This spectrum is the foundation of the information age and of our modern world. Your radio, remote control, text message, television, microwave oven, even a doctor's x-ray, all depend on waves within the electromagnetic spectrum. Electromagnetic waves, or EM waves, are similar to ocean waves in that both are energy waves. They transmit energy. EM waves are produced by the vibration of charged particles and have electrical and magnetic properties. But unlike ocean waves that require water, EM waves travel through the vacuum of space at the constant speed of light. EM waves have crests and troughs like ocean waves. The distance between crests is the wavelength. While some EM wavelengths are very long and are measured in meters, many are tiny and are measured in billionths of a meter, nanometers. The number of these crests that pass a given point within 1 second is described as the frequency of the wave. One wave, or cycle, per second is called a hertz. Long EM waves, such as radio waves, have the lowest frequency and carry less energy. Adding energy increases the frequency of the wave and makes the wavelength shorter. Gamma rays are the shortest, highest energy waves in the spectrum. So, as you sit watching TV, not only are there visible light waves from the TV striking your eyes, but also radio waves transmitting from a nearby station, and microwaves carrying cell phone calls and text messages, and waves from your neighbor's Wi-Fi, and GPS units in the cars driving by. There is a chaos of waves from all across the spectrum passing through your room right now.
That's a good word.
With all these waves around you, how can you possibly watch your TV show? Similar to tuning a radio to a specific radio station, our eyes are tuned to a specific region of the EM spectrum and can detect energy with wavelengths from 400 to 700 nanometers, the visible light region of the spectrum. Objects appear to have color because EM waves interact with their molecules. Some wavelengths in the visible spectrum are reflected, and other wavelengths are absorbed. This leaf looks green because EM waves interact with the chlorophyll molecules. Waves between 492 and 577 nanometers in length are reflected, and our eye interprets this as the leaf being green. Our eyes see the leaf as green, but cannot tell us anything about how the leaf reflects ultraviolet, microwave, or infrared waves. To learn more about the world around us, scientists and engineers have devised ways to enable us to see beyond that sliver of the EM spectrum called visible light.
That's where it ends. So, I think Eric was talking about that a little bit. So, electromagnetic spectrum. Radiation, everything on the electromagnetic spectrum, which is this chart, is considered a form of radiation. So, in Europe, radiation would be a more common word to use. In America here, we say energy or frequency. Typically here in America, when we say radiation, we think something negative. But really, radiation is just another word for some type of energy. And who knows who's more correct on that, but frequency, many use it generically here. We say everything is frequency, which is true because everything is energy, and frequency, though, really is just a measurement of cycles per second. So when you start talking with the real scientists, a lot of them are going to get aggravated when you're talking about everything being frequencies, because we can't actually measure the frequency of every item on the earth necessarily easily for the general population. There are very, very expensive machines that can measure really, really small frequencies, but most of us can't afford those things. So energy equals radiation, and there's many different types. There are many different forms of measurement, so we can measure things in frequency, wavelength, electron volts, electromagnetic force. An electromagnetic field or frequency is an EMF. And it is a physical field that's produced by electrically charged objects. However, anything that exists can have an electromagnetic field. So it just says these fields are combined by an electric field and a magnetic field normally. but everything that actually exists does have that. It's not to be confused with lowercase EMF. That's an electromagnetic, electromotor force. So that's actually different. That's actually talking more about voltage or power and Faraday's law. So some people get that confused. So there's two different types of EMFs, one capital and one lowercase. Most of what people talk about today is capital EMF. So anything that has a motor, a battery, moving parts, runs on AC or maybe even DC current, will produce an electromagnetic field or frequency. But actually everything that exists has an EM field, and those fields can actually carry other information and frequencies. DC seems to be a little bit more natural to the body. So therefore everything does produce, is made up from an electromagnetic field or frequency. But there is a difference between natural and man-made EMFs. So everything found in nature has an energy field frequency, which we can label an EMF. These fields are very subtle. We are still somewhat limited to being able to fully measure them, or at least the general population. Now our bodies have been designed to live with and correspond correctly with natural EMFs. So what happens is all EMFs are sending information, since information is part of frequency. Therefore, communication between both natural items and man-made items are always taking place, even if we don't realize it or if we can't measure it. And this is a problem with the chemistry model and why people cannot understand how some of these things affect the body, because our medicine is primarily biochemistry. The key phrase I'm going to bring up a lot is remember this, that matter, chemistry, doesn't matter to energy. All chemistry is made up of energy. Natural EMFs produce communication with our bodies called in-phase coherence. So think of proper communication. That's what in-phase coherence means. All man-made EMFs produce out-of-phase incoherence, which means the body's ability to communicate properly is messed up. Man-made EMFs can be measured easily by the general population. There's just 3 or 4 different meters you need to measure different types of EMFs. EMF would be like a tri-field meter. RFs, you need a type of a RF meter. And to describe the difference, RF is called radio frequency. However, it's made up of a lot of different things. A radio frequency wave is made up of radio waves, microwaves, and low-level EMFs. And that's what's used by cell phones, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth. The reason they do that is radio waves, as they were saying in that video, are very short, or actually very, very long, but a really low frequency, so they can't carry a lot of information, but they can carry things really far. And then microwaves can carry information very far, but not a lot. So they superimpose the two, and that's how you can get a cell phone communicating across the world. The problem with it is anytime you're using anything that's Wi-Fi, cell phone, you're getting exposed to microwaves, radio waves, and low EMF, which carries the message. It's the same thing as natural chemicals and synthetic chemicals. This is called Kirlian photography, which is a type of photography that can sense different parts of the far infrared spectrum. So they have been able to take pictures of leaves and chemicals and humans and actually kind of see an energy field around them. So what we find with the difference between natural chemicals or synthetic, this is a big thing in my field, because in my field when we look at supplements, we're using what we call natural whole food supplements. Whole food means it was derived from actual food, and they use the whole food. So instead of trying to disinfect an orange and say, oh, well, we know the vitamin C in the orange is really good, so we're just going to take the vitamin C out, we're using the whole orange because obviously y'all put it all there for a reason. Most of drugs today are synthetically produced, and there's a lot of supplements out there that are synthetic too. So they figure out what is in the orange that your body likes, and then they synthetically start making synthetic vitamin C. Chemically wise, when you look at the chemical construction, it looks identical. So they think, great, it's the same. However, if you look at the energy field, between the natural and the synthetic, it's completely different. The synthetic almost has no energy field.
Wow.
So, as far as the body is concerned, it is not considered the same. It doesn't have proper communication.
So it's kind of like life is in the blood.
Yes. And we'll get more into that here later. But that's why you're always, you know, Eric was mentioning earlier today about how there's all this fake news, where there's a lot of fake science out there now too. There's a lot of fake everything.
So much.
And most of the time, I mean, I think Harvard just did a study, and they said 80% of all medical studies are completely made up.
80%?
80%. So think about that for the last 100 years.
Is that a true fact?
That's a
I mean,
true
they got
fact.
that 80%.
Yeah, right.
That's
Where does that start?
80% true according to Harvard.
Harvard said that?
Yeah. But, you have questions?
So I guess synthetic chemicals, sometimes the body cannot recognize them.
Totally.
Correctly, the body cannot recognize. That's why all man-made drugs are actually toxins to the body. And that's why they say all drugs have side effects, which basically means your body doesn't recognize it and it's going to cause damage.
Ay.
So what happens is, you will hear a lot of people come out and say, well, natural supplements, herbs, they're dangerous, don't take them, they can kill you, and then they'll quote these studies. Well, if you look at the studies, they're almost all done by pharmaceutical companies. And if you study or if you look at what they were using in the study, they always use synthetic vitamins.
Oh,
So they're basically telling you synthetic vitamins aren't any good, and they try to scare you into thinking that the natural ones, which are whole food based, are the same.
wow.
But they're not. So you always have to ask who paid for the study and why,
Exactly.
and then you look through it, and then you find out whether or not they just made up numbers or not, because they do. So biophysics is talking about the physics of the body. Bio means biology, which is why if you have an antibiotic, biology is a word that means life. So an antibiotic is an anti-life drug, which is why when you take them, it just kills everything. Proper communication in physics and biophysics, so this is how it works. Our body works just like telecommunications. In-phase coherence means proper communication is getting through and the message is received and understood. Out-of-phase incoherence means improper communication. The message wasn't completely received and or misunderstood.
So you change that to an E, massage?
Oh, yes. See, that's what happens when you do this stuff all the time. I send a message. Thank you very much. Oh, I'm going to have to update something and send that again. Human energy systems. Okay, so these have been measured for probably the last 70 years, for sure. Maybe 80. It started with Dr. Voll, who wanted to see if he could measure the difference between acupuncture points and non-points. And sure enough, he found out that acupuncture points had 100% more resistance than if you went to a non-point. They also injected radioactive isotopes and were able to trace the pathways through the body. So we have a very good idea now how pathways flow in the body, at least a lot of them. But there's all types of different energy systems. I kind of like this picture. There are these things called chakras, which do exist. A lot of the information on them is just made up. There's meridians, there's all kinds of different energy systems, but we continue to discover more of them, and they're just different levels of what I call pure energy, which comes from light and spirit into physical solid, which we will get more into that here. Here are some basic principles. Oh, I should say this too. Another name that's commonly used instead of biophysics is bioenergetics. So some people will say bioenergetics or bioelectric systems or biophysics. All these words are kind of used interchangeably. Obviously we need to understand everything is energy. Everything in the body has its own frequency, just like everything in the existence has its own frequency if we were able to measure it. Bioenergetic systems work via communication. The bioenergetic systems circulate and function as resonators of frequency, and frequency should be defined as force and movement. Force movement is the same thing. That's like the power to accomplish something. And information. which manifests into a physical body. So we have to remember the unseen creates the seen. Subtle energy systems do not like to be forced stimulated. So what our goal is proper resonation. So we're going to come back to this. This is really key because this is going to get into creation when we understand energy and what frequency is made up of. I have this thing called shadow DNA. So they have something now that they've found that's called shadow DNA. And it's basically like an energetic, you could say, shadow of the DNA. And we have this for everything in the body. It's almost like a completely energetic DNA strand that's not chemical.
No, I was just touching off a moth, sorry.
Yep. So remember the force movement, which is, I would call that power to accomplish something, and information. We're going to come back to that at some point. So for good health, we want proper circulation and resonance, which means health and wellness. Because when things are circulating, they're transferring information throughout the body. So if something gets congested, you can get too much or not enough. And basically that's how everything in life works. It's a balance. It's either a weakened state or a stressed state. Everything in the body works this way. This is one of the big mistakes that modern medicine makes. You can think of something simple like kidneys. What do your kidneys need to function correctly? You need minerals, salt, you need water. Someone who has kidney disease, the first thing they want to do is jump to an extreme. Cut out your water, cut out your salt.
True.
Well, that's going to create more kidney problems. Because it's not a proper balance. Maybe they were having too much, maybe they didn't have enough, so then you have to balance it. So when the communication and resonance gets confused, it's incoherent. So then that means there's bad communication in the body. And then we discovered something called cyclotronic resonance. And what we found was that this is how things communicate with the body, more on a chemistry perspective. So when you apply an electric field to a magnetic field, we found that charged particles will start to move. That's basically what this is saying. They start orbiting. So if the direction of the electric field is slightly off from right angles, the particle will move in a spiral pathway. And it doesn't take much of a magnetic field and an electric field for this to happen. So many activities of the living cells include positive and negatively charged ions or minerals like sodium, calcium, potassium. And cell membranes actually have something called an electropotential, where things move inside and out of the cell. They change the amount of positive and negative electrons, and when you have more of one on one side than the other, it creates an electropotential, and that creates a voltage spike, which then opens up the cell membrane and things come in and out. So what they're finding is all these man-made devices we have are creating these particles to start moving, and those gates to open up and close more rapidly than they're supposed to. And thus, information is then also transferred, which we'll get to that. Cyclotronic resonance is a mechanism of action which enables very low strength electromagnetic fields acting in concert with the Earth's geomagnetic fields to produce major biological effects. As you can see, the Earth's magnetic field is between 0.2 and 0.6 Gauss. So even down here at 0.2, at 60 Hertz, they were showing how things were rapidly starting to change. You don't need much of a magnetic field for things to start changing. And then the higher the frequency goes, the worse it gets too. And the higher the magnetic field, the worse it will get. And of course now with all these different devices, we're increasing both of those fields. So that kind of explains how EMS affect the body in a chemistry perspective. That are allowing the cells to open up and close more rapidly, and things are going in and out of the cells quicker than they're supposed to. On an energetic level, there's a whole nother side of that, which is what this is all about. How the body really works. This is the corrected levels of structural organization. So in modern medicine and almost all anatomy physiology books, you're going to see the stuff in the white here, which I call the hardware. They start at the chemical level. And they say chemicals come together to form cells, cells come together to form tissues, tissues come together to form organs, then organs come together to form these organ systems, and all of that working together forms you. What they leave out is this very important field called the informational level, which is electromagnetic communication. That's what creates the chemistry. I call that the software of the body. That's the unseen. They're just focused on what they can see. So most medical studies does not go any further than the chemical level. Now the Aleph-Tav body system contains all the information for life, coherent resonating frequencies with proper circulation, and that's what controls the informational level and then everything else. Oh. Maybe I have it in my next one, but so since everything is on the informational level, which is frequency-based, energy-based, this is a very different paradigm. Because in the chemical model, we can come up with these crazy stories they call science, like million years ago, far, far away, long time ago, Darth Vader is flying around the galaxies, killing off all the Jedis, and in a distant galaxy, nothing blew up. I don't know how nothing blows up into something. But this is a story they tell you, and they say these chemicals just kind of start bumping into each other, and then all these chemical reactions happen. It's just random. The reality is chemical level is controlled by the informational level, electromagnetic. And we don't want to talk about that because then we have to define what it makes up a frequency or an electromagnetic field. And as I told you, it's information and power to accomplish something. Well, that's not random. So that means someone all-powerful and all-knowing had to design that information. So if you sweep this level under the rug, you can kind of just make up these random events of chemistry without answering the question, who has all the knowledge and information that makes everything work? So now we're going to do another video, and then we're going to get into Aleph-Tav body a little bit more. So this is going to show you power of electromagnetism as far as sound. And hopefully the sound doesn't blow us away, because this could be loud. Let's see.
The film you're about to see has no characters.
That's what I thought.
If you'll spare a little of your imagination, it is a film to describe to you the effect of cymatic frequencies on matter.
That's something.
we call this plasma energy. We're going to talk about that more. That's a Tesla coil. Which brings up a whole interesting question. I don't even know if we want to get into that. But I often ask people who talk about this stuff, now they're labeling it EMI, which is electromagnetic interference, because that is actually a really good definition of what the man-made devices are doing to us. They're interfering with the basic communication system of our body, which is electromagnetic. And what does that affect? Everything. But, they have something out there now called EHS, which is electromagnetic hypersensitivities. Some people are really sensitive to these things. They can't leave their house. So I always ask people, who was the first person who ever had those symptoms? Most people don't know. But it was actually Nikola Tesla. After all his experiments, he went hypersensitive, and he could not stand a clock ticking 3 rooms away. He had to put tennis balls on the bottom of all his chairs and beds because cars going down the road would drive him crazy. He said it sounded like an anvil pounding on his head. And my question was, what was Nikola Tesla? Was he crazy? Was he a genius? Because you have these different fields, you talk to different people, and they have their own ideas. If you go to more of the hippie new age group of people, they're going to say Nikola Tesla was the greatest man ever and he wanted to give everyone free energy. He was probably going to kill us all. I used to think Edison was not that smart, and Tesla, who was his understudy, was much smarter than him. And as I did more studying, I found out that Edison actually didn't disagree that you could do AC current. He thought AC current might be too dangerous to the human body, so he wanted to stick to DC current. But that's not what I was taught in electrical engineering. I was just taught that he was the idiot and Tesla was smarter than him, and he was just trying to keep his understudy back. And the interesting thing about Tesla is they said most of all his ideas and stuff just popped into his head. He had visions. And there's many records that he consulted with spirits. And he would write down these designs, and he had more technology and he had more patents than anyone ever. He died with absolutely nothing. So you have to ask the question, where was he getting this information from, and was it really a good idea that he developed this AC current, which we now know is so dangerous to our bodies? And it depends on who you talk to. So I'm not convinced that what he was doing, he was actually the genius we thought he was, or if he was just listening to something we don't know what, and it was giving him all these ideas. Everything we have today is because of Nikola Tesla. All of our modern technology is because of him. But I also talk to people who do ministries and demonic deliverance stuff, and they say one thing that they have always found, which I can understand now, is demons or evil spirits seem to travel across electromagnetic power grids. Very interesting. So then you wonder, who was speaking to Tesla and who gave him all these ideas?
And what about CERN?
Yes, which is because of Tesla, which is now opening up doors to portals. My understanding is that the electromagnetic systems or electromagnetic energy is the glue that connects the physical world to the spiritual. I mean, you look at us, we're nothing but dirt. How are we walking around and talking? He put a spirit in us, and he had to put something else to animate this body, to keep the spirit glued into this dirt that keeps us living. I believe that's the electromagnetic energy. And you see that with our body. So what we find is the Creator provides the breath of life. Where did that go? That's weird. Which is like light, force, movement, information, spirit. That gets connected to the electromagnetic systems of the body, which all working together create an electromagnetic telecommunication system, and that's what creates the chemistry, and then the cells, tissues, organs, and it's all working based on this information that comes from the Creator as when He spoke. He put it all into motion, and it's working. Remember, matter doesn't matter to energy. So it's not about the chemistry, it's about the informational level and how that communication is working. And then you think of Adam and Eve and what happened at the fall. We broke that connection, and that explains a lot. So matter doesn't matter to energy. It's all about electromagnetic communication. This is how the body really works. The ultimate cause is bioenergetic communication. We could call this the body's software. Once the body's software gets messed up, it creates a domino effect that can cause problems on the chemical level, the cellular level, and so forth. What messes it up? Life. Toxins, scar tissues, injuries, emotions, negative thinking, how we live, what we eat, what we drink, breathe, or the lack of it. So you're going to see, eventually I'm going to tie this into Torah. In my testing, we call this energetic causal change. It's the main cause that create a chain reaction. So, the question should always be, how far up the chain do we go? Modern medicine wants to stop at chemistry, which really doesn't explain anything. This is about my testing I do, so basically the device I use is called a Quest 4. It does most of the work for us, as it tests biofrequency, but most people continue to get stuck on the chemistry model, and then they reject biochemistry, or biophysics. If we get stuck on chemistry way too much, this is not the ultimate cause. Even if we find a problem on the chemical level, it might not be the cause, it could still be a symptom level. So we think of things like phantom pain, phantom DNA. These are examples of the body's electromagnetic systems. This is a plant. It's the same picture, it's just two different ones. And you can see what happened is they cut the plant in half and then they took a picture of it. And you can still see the energy field. So this is what happens in phantom pain. If you cut away a limb, you still have the electromagnetic energy system of the body. The pathways are still circulating there even though the limb's not there. And those pathways carry information. In fact, that's how the body is really communicating, because the old idea that all your communication is through the central nervous system is not true. It's too slow. There's no way you can start stepping on a nail, and then in their model it's like, well, it takes 2 seconds to get to the brain, and then the brain has to process it, and then it takes another 3 seconds to get back, Well, we're like 5-7 seconds, so standing on a nail before you go, oh, that kind of hurt. But we don't respond that way. It's instantaneous. Just because the information in the body is being transferred by electromagnetic. So it's the speed of light.
How long does that field last after it's been cut off?
Maybe forever. And that's what phantom pain is. Phantom pain, anytime you have pain, it doesn't matter what the pain is a signal that energy is not circulating. That's simple. All pain.
Wow.
So if you have phantom pain, that means the energy pathways are not circulating well because you made a cut. Which really makes you wonder about commandments about not cutting the body. So all scar tissue, all surgeries will cause more problems to the body because they cut the energy pathways and then the information is not being communicated correctly. And you have to get that pathway traveling through the scar tissue again so it can communicate correctly.
So you're saying that the pathway is still there, but the energy is not going through the pathway?
Correct, even though the leg's not physically there. And in fact, if you touch the points where they were supposed to be, even though there's no leg, you could still feel energetic pulses.
I forgot that.
Even just like this picture. It's been cut, you can still see the energy field. It's not as good as what it should be, but it looks like it lost a little on this side. But
So the pain is coming because the energy is not flowing through there, even
Correct.
though the pathway's there? Okay.
yep. So all pain is just a warning signal that something's wrong, that something's not circulating. Did you have a question, John?
What's phantom DNA?
Phantom DNA is what I was referring to before. It's an energetic DNA. Just like this leaf. So if this was the DNA, we could look at a chemical structure of DNA. Well, they know now that there is an energetic DNA pattern too. That's not chemical. So which one do you think controls the other? Which means we could change our DNA if you could change the energy DNA. And that's the whole field now of what they call epigenetics.
Yeah.
So now they're saying your DNA is just a code, like the Torah, and your gene expression depends on how your body's reading it. So we're finding out your body can read your DNA differently. And what changes how your body reads it? Environment, how you live, your lifestyle. Isn't that interesting? So you can turn on and off genes by getting your body to read your DNA differently by how you live.
There's this movie I watched, Genesis is History, and there's a guy who talks about DNA, about the 4 stages of DNA, and that when a virus comes in, our body creates proteins to attack it and then leave it, and they say we get new cells every 90 days, so it's like, I was thinking when Moses was on top of the mountain and his face was starting glowing, it's like he came down twice, so that was 80 days, and then he went back up again. I was wondering, was that around the 90 days when he came down the mountain, and the people were like, you can't look at his face, that his DNA was changing, being close, being near the, you could say the source. The source.
The source, yep. Very possible. So energy can neither be created nor destroyed, rather it transfers from one form to another. That's the law of conservation of energy. So,
One other question,
yes.
and I kind of hate the concept, all of this changing of sexual identity, changing DNA, could that affect that?
In which way, maybe?
Changing sexual, sex.
I don't think so, because the DNA is still written. So if you're supposed to be a male, you're supposed to be a male. If you're supposed to be female, you're supposed to be female.
Okay. Good, I'm glad to hear that.
But they could alter their genes and their gene expression, which is still not lining up with what the DNA was supposed to be.
So,
So they're basically making their own reality,
creating chaos.
creating chaos, which is ultimately going to cause more problems down the line.
And it's believing the lie.
Right. And which is what we see,
To the
is all these
simplest.
people become mentally, emotionally crazy. And the people who are honest about it, the psychologists say these people have a mental disorder
Because they're stable.
because they're stable.
They-
I mean, just like I remember when I was in seminary, they used to quote that back in the 70s and 80s, there was a lot of research for homosexuality being treated as a disorder and having an 80% success rate for cure. But somewhere in the 90s, you stopped hearing about any of those studies anymore and how they used to treat homosexuality as a disease. And people were cured of it. Now, you don't hear that anymore at all. Now you're born that way. So,
Wow.
so energetic signatures of frequencies. So this is more for people to do testing, but it's good for you to understand. Frequencies are really just a measurement of cycles per second of a wave. We use the word generically for energy. Does everything have a frequency? Yes, but not all of them can be measured. Items stored in the quest for Osira would be more accurately called energetic signatures, which are like an energetic fingerprint. This is similar to the Hebrew word Shem, which is name. So in Hebrew, words have meanings, obviously, and I use this acronym for Shem, which is nice. It stands for nature, identity, character, and essence. That's what Shem is. The nature, identity, character, and essence. It's not about the phonetic soundbite. It's about what's the nature, identity, character, and essence of that name, which is like an energetic signature, because words are numbers and numbers are words, which we're going to get into. So an energetic signature in nature is the nature, identity, character, and essence of that particular substance. It contains all the information and force of that item. So it's almost like you're taking an energetic copy of a substance, and that's what's put into the database. So does it have a frequency? Yes. Could we tell you the exact frequency of it? Probably not, but we have the energetic fingerprint. So now we get into the Aleph Tav body. Restoring the Hebrew, that was all introduction. Aleph Tav body, restoring the bioenergetic temple. So I call it the language of Yah discovered in the human body. Here's my definition of it right now. The Aleph Tav body system is a Hebrew electromagnetic telecommunication system of the human body. This system is made up of the basic building blocks of all creation, the Hebrew letters, which control all the information for the proper function, shape, form, and animation of the human body. So that's a mouthful, but that is a really good definition of what it is. We might go through this quickly because a lot of this is probably going to be basic for you guys, but it's here for people who don't. So it's a creationist understanding of Yah's design of the human body from a Hebraic energetic perspective. So in the beginning, Elohim created Aleph Tav, heaven and earth. So obviously, if you read this in the Hebrew, you're going to see the Aleph Tav in Genesis or Bereshit 1:1. If you're reading it in the English, you never see it. So this creates this kind of esoteric concept, and people, like Eric was saying earlier, people call it Kabbalah, this idea that he created the Hebrew language and then he used that to create everything else, and they're like, oh, that's mysticism or something. But it's in Genesis.
Exactly.
He created the Aleph Tav. And what is the Aleph Tav? Well, there's a lot of ideas. There's even Aleph Tav scriptures now. I think it's all kinds of things. There's multiple levels. I think it depends on your perspective. You can say it summarizes the entire alphabet. It could be a person. It could be all kinds of things related to anything and everything related to Aleph through Tav. And we have the rest there, where the earth was formless and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep, and the spirit of Elohim was moving over the surface of the waters. And Elohim said, let there be light, and there was light. So what is the universe? What does it mean? Well, it means single verse, single spoken sentence. Oops, that's it. Is really what universe means. So who spoke and what language did he use? If Yah spoke everything forth and formed everything from what he spoke, we should start to see his fingerprints, or the fingerprints of Yah's language everywhere in creation. And I think that's exactly what we're starting to do. So Brad Scott has a book or a video called "In My Flesh I See God," and he reveals how the design of the Hebrew language is found embedded in all of God's creation. So he discusses how the structure of the Word of God is found in agriculture, written on our DNA, 2 and 3 letter roots. He gets into how it resembles the cells, chromosomes, atoms. So Hebrew is the building blocks of creation. It's agro-bio-mathematic language. Hebrew is an energetic language because numbers are the language of energy. And Hebrew, numbers and languages or numbers and letters are the same thing. So you don't want to compare Hebrew with any other language. Numbers are letters. They are one and the same. It's not like how we take English and we just number it. A is 1 and B is 2. No, Hebrew, numbers and letters are the same thing. It's not Kabbalah, it's not mysticism, it's not New Age, it's not a cult. Hasatan did not create anything. So, word about counterfeits. You don't want to ring from the truth because of the counterfeit.
That's right.
Do you ever see a counterfeit $3 bill? Why?
No such thing.
Not a real $3 bill.
You only counterfeit that which is real or true.
Right.
Have you ever seen a counterfeit penny?
Not worth doing.
You only counterfeit what's valuable. Does the counterfeit look similar? Is the counterfeit the same as the original? No. The truth and the lie look similar, but they are not the same. What does the anti-counterfeiter study? He studies the real thing, he studies the truth. If you know the truth, you can identify the counterfeit.
That's why they train the treasury people to study the real thing.
Yes.
If they memorize that, they can always tell a counterfeit.
Yep. I believe Hasatan uses counterfeits for 2 reasons. To mislead those who believe the counterfeit, and to keep others away from the truth out of fear. So whenever I see a counterfeit, I ask, what is he trying to hide from us? Instead of running away because of fear, we investigate what's the real thing. So fear is faith in reverse. We don't put more faith in Hasatan than we do Yah. What's worse, you may give credit to Hasatan for what Yah made and designed and grieve the Ruach. And I hear a lot of people do that all the time. Well, that must be a saint. Well, what happened if Yah designed it? I'll stand back. Everything in the body is controlled by energy points and pathways. These points are related to Hebrew letters and biblical principles. So the body works based on the laws of physics and mathematics. The body is our temple, and it works based on all of Yah's laws, which I call the universal Torah, which he has spoken. So the temple, human temple, functions based on Hebrew energy points and related to his word and his Torah. They are mathematical and function much like telecommunication systems in the body, sending information throughout the body to the proper manifestation and function of the human temple. Therefore, function and meaning are similar to thematic interpretation, drawing a correlated meaning between the energy point and the biblical meaning, or you could say the meaning of the Hebrew letter. Therefore, how we live is directly correlated to how each point functions, and thus how the temple will ultimately function. It is all built on the universal legal system that Yah created and put into effect. Spiritual warfare is based on a legal system. Blessings and curses are based on a legal system. Ancient Near Eastern covenants are based on a legal system. Physics is based on a legal system. Your temple, the body, is based on a legal system. The Torah is that legal system. Not just the biblical Torah, but all instructions that Yah set forth when he created